DK, obviously you grew up in that same neighborhood, you know, where Spike Lee was. So there's this vandalism at the home, the message, do the right thing, the house next door, vandalized, the glass broken, with the logo of his production company put up. So clearly this is targeted at Spike. Do you think this is retaliation for those comments?
I think it's necessary to give a little bigger context. You know, Spike was invited to Pratt for Black History Month. Pratt is one of the leading art schools in the world. And it's a leading art school in the world because of the diversity of creativity and also of viewpoints.
Yep.
And so before the question was asked to Spike, there was 90 minutes of him giving a great background and history on how he got into film, on his struggles, you know, growing up in Brooklyn, filled with expletives, because that's Spike's style. So when you hear these outtakes, you know, and you hear it with expletives, it was a friendly, humorous, respectful exchange.
Right.
And people that, you know, maybe heard him go off and get very impassioned about, you know, gentrification, that was just a very small part of the whole evening. And certainly anybody who would retaliate or do anything like that to someone's property, they're all the way wrong.
They're all the way wrong, but this is interesting because when you and I talked about this earlier this week, and you talked about that neighborhood, and you talked about ways you've been treated, that, you know, the whole issue was, right, that if it had been an African-American neighborhood and then it's gentrified, you have white people moving in, the whole situation changes. You talked about racism that you've experienced in that neighborhood.
Yeah, gentrification is a hotbed issue, but nothing justifies defacing and vandalizing someone's property. That's not how we roll in Brooklyn, Aaron. That's really what it comes down. That's not how we roll.
Right. But
even when we have a problem.
I'm just saying, I can't imagine it really surprises you in the sense of some of the stories you told about things that have happened to you were pretty horrible. People
get impassioned about things, and that's why I thought it was important to bring some context to it about that evening. You know, that it wasn't just Spike breaking out and ranting, and the salty language might have you believe that. But like I said, he told a warm story about his grandparents, and it was filled with the same kind of salty language. Right. So that kind of retaliation and vandalism, it's just not acceptable. It's not what we do in Brooklyn. It's never how we've handled things. And I can't speak for Spike, but I'm sure he's going to be outraged by that.
I'm sure he is going to be outraged by that. But by the way, we spoke to Spike Lee's brother today, and I just want to play a quick clip of that. Here he is. Oh, sorry, actually, we don't have that. But anyway, he said Spike shouldn't make his argument so personal, that he shouldn't have let the world know where his family lives as part of this. But as you point out, this was an event that was sort of built around the neighborhood. But what about the broader issue here? And I want to ask you this because obviously Spike Lee's parents still live in the neighborhood where you live. Spike Lee, though, has become so successful. You know, he's left the neighborhood, right? He has a $32 million mansion, I'm sorry, on the Upper East Side, among many homes. So how does that play? If when you get all that money, you don't stay?
You know, that's a problem that's in the black community that goes beyond Spike Lee, and something that we need to address. You know, we become very successful, we move to the suburbs. You know, we're not back in the community. We're not being leaders like front and center. I mean, you know, I have many friends who write big checks to all kinds of causes, and sometimes I say to them, well, you might do better just to show up. Just to show up in a mentoring event.
Interesting. Interesting.
So we really need front and center. We need role models, and we need to be in the community. So, you know, I think that's the bigger issue.